Awesome. Well, let's kick it off. So thanks everyone. uh, this is the last Iceberg Principle before the new year, before Christmas, before the holidays, which is so great. Today we got Rob Go. I am so stoked. Rob grew up in Indiana, got his entrepreneurial journey started by selling airheads in middle school. In his first year of university, he was diagnosed with bone cancer and spent 17 months fighting it. Went through the whole chemo treatment and everything else. And after beating it, I believe you returned to school, right, Rob? And really
Yeah.
had a new business idea coming out of that, which was Bitteroo. And you would go on to become a serial entrepreneur, founding multiple companies and even acquiring a staple streetwear brand, Dope. You might also know Rob for setting the world record for his purchase of a $5.2 million Mickey Mantle rookie card, and for starring alongside people like Bruce Willis in his most recent movie. So yeah, Rob, like, thanks so much for being here, man. Super stoked to have you.
Honored to be here. Congrats on ZayZoon. Great
Thanks,
business.
man. Thank you. And yeah, I said at the beginning, but anyone that has a question, please raise your hand and we'll pull you in. I believe there's a chat there as well that you can interact with. But yeah, the intent is like, let's make this a fun conversation, and we're here to learn, like learn through experience and learn through some wild stories and take those analogies to our own lives, which I really like. So okay, to kick it off, I want to dig into dig into the Bitteroo story a little bit,
Yeah.
because you operated that for 7 years throughout university. It was right at the time when you came out of your cancer diagnosis. Like, I feel like that's a very pivotal moment for a couple reasons. I think like being in university and coming out of that and figuring out what you're doing in and of itself is difficult for a lot of people. You add to that, the battle of cancer, and then this company that you founded and operated for 7 years. What was this company? What were some of the challenges that presented itself in there? And let's maybe just start there.
So basically, when I had cancer, I had a lot of time. I couldn't be around people. I didn't have an immune system. And so, my mind was always just working on, what do I do after, just kind of like coming up with crazy ideas. And so what it was the first unique bid auction. So essentially what happened was, I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I couldn't have a flat screen television or a big screen television in my dorm room. So I wanted one. And so it was a way to basically give somebody an item for 90% below retail. So the way it worked was, let's say I sold a television that was $1,000 retail. I would sell it for $100. And the way that I would get the winner is I would take the highest unique bid closest to the Bitteroo price, that $100, without going over. So for instance, if you bid $100 and Chaz bid $100, you were not unique, and so therefore you lost. And if I bid $99.99 and I'm the only one that bid that amount, then I would win it for that price. So the question is, well, how did I afford to give the winner at $99.99 a $1,000 television for $100? And so I would charge you $10 if you bid, no matter if you won or lost. It was $10 a bid. And so it's kind of like an online raffle, but and online raffles were illegal at the time on the internet. I don't know how they are now, but I was young. I was probably 18 years old. I had no money. No one would give me money. I tried to I didn't really know any wealthy individuals, so I got college loans to pay for school, and then I would basically get extra money to live on and get jobs, and I would use that extra money to put it into this company, and so it's a tough business to launch, but I don't know where I was going, but that's how I got the winner. So I had to basically pay lawyers every dollar I had to prove that it was not gambling, and we did. We proved that it was a game of skill. and we also added an extra feature where you could basically refer friends and get free tokens and other things. But that's what the business was.
How did that idea come to be? Was there other analogies for that or examples for that? Were you participating in like manual raffles yourself and you're like, oh, like this is kind of neat, or was it just like a random sort of bout of inspiration that made it live?
There was a church down the street that always did this like carnival every year, and you could buy raffle tickets. And I always thought I was going to win, and that's where it kind of think kind of started in my head. But it was tough because I didn't know how to build a website back then. It was so long ago. You had to have servers that were on these server rooms. So I actually outsourced and found an Indian developer on, back then it was called like Elance. Nowadays, they have things called like Upwork or things, these kind of outsourced services. And that was a game changer for me, just to find this lady, because I quoted out building the website all through Indianapolis, and all these local guys wanted a fortune to build it. And they were really outsourcing it to Indy anyways. And so finding that and going direct really saved me a fortune. Not like a fortune, I didn't have a lot of money, but I was able to get it done.
I might want to come back to that because I think there's some specific learnings in there, just like around, yeah, the concept of remote, the concept of outsource versus, building a team and whatnot. But I want to dig into, I saw in a past interview you had, you talked about your grandpa and he gave you some advice. I think he was telling you like you need to go work for someone else for at least 3 years before you go out and do something again on your own. And that's like really odd to me because it sounds like you had some initial success with Bitteroo, and like you're clearly proving skills as an entrepreneur, and like you're probably not all that employable, to be honest. If I think of like myself and founder qualities there. I'm curious, like, why did your grandpa give you this advice? And did you take it? And if you did, like, how did you take the sentiment of it and apply it in principle to your own pursuits?
So I think it was good advice. At the time I thought I could do anything. The reason why I look back and see it as good advice now is, I was kind of figuring things out as I went. And joining a corporate company, you have processes in place. You maybe have other coworkers that you can learn from. There's just so much you can learn from a bigger company and from working in a corporate. Maybe you can learn that a lot of corporate guys just work enough to keep the job, but they're not hustlers. So you learn that you don't want that, that work ethic. Or maybe there's a guy that's really gone to the top, and you see that he's working late and coming in early, and so I think there's a lot to learn from a corporate environment. And I did take his advice. So after Bitteroo, I went and worked for a company called Finish Line, and they had, I don't know, a lot of stores, 700 stores. It was like a shoe-based retailer, and it was incredible for me because I never worked a corporate job before. I never had to do Excel spreadsheets, and my boss, like, nothing was like, no spreadsheet was ever like done correctly. And I'm like, what is this girl talking about? Who cares? Like, I'm producing crazy numbers for you. Like, who cares about the stupid spreadsheet? But I think it was a good learning experience, just to kind of learn that culture. But also I learned that, I crushed it for them, because the person that I took over their job for, he was just kind of there to collect a paycheck. And then I came in, this young, like 22-year-old kid, and was ready to take over the world. And so I grew their business like crazy quickly, because I was just hungry, and they were really good to me because of that, because I grew their business so much. They were great to me. So I think that's what happens. You're rewarded once you do good for a business.
Is that what led into, I know this was like much previous to Dope, but is that what led into Dope and like gave you that kind of that thought that you could really tackle the streetwear industry, being that you were working in the retail space with that previous company? Or like what sort of gave you that confidence to buy a streetwear brand, which when I look at like your resume, it's like very,
Yeah.
based on what you started in the technology space and then in the marketing space, going into like retail seemed super out of left field. And I'm curious, like, what led you to that Dope acquisition, and yeah, let's start there, and then I want to dig into some learnings.
So I knew of Dope long before I acquired it. So it was actually founded in Indiana. I looked at investing in it when it first started. So, I was kind of, along for the ride and watched them and as they grew and launched them as they, had success or maybe made some failures and how they just kind of grew. So I didn't, and then they moved to LA and then I moved to LA and I stayed in contact with their team. But the reason why I bought it, after I sold, a couple other things before, for me, when I sell a business, it's like you play a video game and you beat the level. Well, like you're not going to go back and play the same level again. And that's the easiest way, right? Like you're like, oh, I can beat it. I'll beat it faster. It's easier, which is awesome. But for me, it was always after a couple exits, like I wanted a challenge and I could go back and do tech again. Or I could go back and do whatever again. But that for me wasn't, I was doing it more for the challenge and less for the money. So if I was just about the money, I would just, it's a template. It's pretty simple to just get these exits. It is a pretty simple process once you do it a couple times. But for me, I wanted a challenge because I was an idiot. So
What's simple about the tech template in your mind, or at least the one that you apply to like the businesses you've had, that maybe was completely different from the retail template?
It's easier to scale tech, right? So retail, so the problem with Dope, we're putting out, first of all, I overcomplicated it. So it wasn't just printables, which a lot of these brands start. They just print their name on it, or they just do easy logos, whatever. Everything that I did, most of what I did was all cut and sew. So it was, maybe this year it's drop shoulder, then it's like, it's all just very intricate, unique things. So you have to get that done overseas. So you design it with tech packs, and then they send the samples, and then you change it, and you send, it's like 4 different, at least, versions before you get it. And then I'm also, putting out at least 6 collections a year. So I've got to make sure that this collection is cool and dope 6 times a year. And I've got to make sure the right people are wearing it 6 times a year. And it's not just like one piece. I'm doing like 50-piece collections. So all these kind of like clothing brands that I see now, they're very small. They're very like small capsules. They're easy to do, which is great. But I was in malls. I was doing jeans at the Buckle. I was all these different stores. I was doing boutiques. I was doing big box. So it was a much bigger thing. And you're basically launching 6 new brands per year. Like if you make an energy drink, you just reprint the thing. It's the same formula every year. You're just basically focused on marketing. It's so easy. Whereas with Dope, you're redoing the product every single 6 times a year. So that's a lot more difficult than tech, because tech, it was easy to scale. It was very easy to scale.
Did that yeah, like the difficulty in that would be insane. Like, yeah, dropping 6 collections a year. Did that fill up like your creative bucket a ton? Were you, did you experience that in tech where you were like, okay, you were kind of getting, it was mundane, you were going through the same steps over and over again? Was Dope a way to like express that creativity for you? Or did you really go into it and look at it as like, this is just another business, another challenge, and we'll see what happens?
No, I mean, it was a blast. I mean, it was definitely the challenge I was looking for, but maybe a little more challenging than I thought it was going to be. But no, it was great. It was great in all aspects. I mean, it was a good learning experience. It was, the business boomed, and that was fun to watch.
So you've now sold Dope as a clothing brand, correct? But you retain a certain aspect of that. Is that right?
So clothing trademarks, I sold that. So I can't do clothing anymore. But I still own dope.com, dope on Instagram, dope on Twitter, and a large trademark portfolio to do other things.
What other things are you do you got stuff cooking up?
I don't know. I mean, for the past 3 years, I've just been kind of thinking what to do with it. Initially, I bought the company to go into cannabis. I just think there's no better name, and the data would show that over 70% of people would choose the word dope in buying cannabis. The problem is these cannabis. I looked at the industry. I've looked at it many times over the years, and these guys, it's a very tough business. They lose a lot of money. There's no real buyers. It's like it's like stock, not a lot of cash buyers, and the stock typically goes down. So it just hasn't been the right time, and I think that's really because it hasn't become legal from a federal level yet. But I didn't want to jump into a business just because it made sense if I couldn't see an exit in the future, and I didn't see an exit. I thought I would hemorrhage money and lose money along the way, and that's just not how I do business.
Fair. Okay, I think that's a good segue. Like, I want to talk about goal setting, uh, because is it Ecom? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, so Ecom was basically one of the largest affiliate sites in the world. So we would push sales for Macy's, Home Depot, Bloomingdale's, 1-800-Flowers, whatever. We push sales to them, and they pay us a commission.
Okay, and so with Ecom, you had what I understand is a monster exit, and you effectively went into retirement, right, at the age of like how old? Very young.
Yeah, that one I don't know, maybe 29 or so, 30.
Okay, and so I'm curious, like, you effectively like exit out, trying to figure out what to do. At the same time, you're talking about the dope brand. You've had that for a few years, but you don't want to go into something if you don't really like foresee an exit in there.
No, I bought dope after. So I exited, then I didn't do much, just kind of hung out in Hollywood. And then I bought dope.
Okay. And now you've divested dope, or I mean the clothing piece of it, and you're sort of just figuring out what to do next with that dope brand. And I'm sure doing other stuff. I guess I'm curious, like, how does goal setting play into all of that? It sounds like you've been very focused on starting something, selling something, starting something, selling something. And it sounds like if you don't see that clear path to what could be an exit, you want to wait almost until that clear path is there. I don't know if I'm understanding that correctly or if I'm interpreting correctly, but I'm curious, like, how you approach goal setting and like how you think of like what's Rob's life look like in 5 years from now based on the things that I do today. And like, yeah, I suppose it's a very generalized question, but I want to just like get into that goal setting mindset with you.
So goals, so typically, you make that New Year's resolution, right? We're coming up to New Year's now. So typically what I do, I didn't do this before, but I'll do, family goals, let's say business goals, how to make the world better goals. I could probably pull it up, but I basically make a spreadsheet and I have like different bucket, donation goals for like charity, and so basically I just kind of bucket, and then once I knock them off the list, I just move them down to accomplish for the year. But in the beginning of the year, I kind of have buckets, family, like, yeah, those, how to make the world better, like I said, and then I just as I knock them off, I just travel goals, any plans that I want to go that I haven't been to.
And do you approach that from an annual perspective, or do you think of like here's my goals in 5 or 10 years from now, working back to what do I want to do this year in order to take one step further? And it's fine if you don't. I'm just curious how like your brain works in that regard.
I have both. So I do it for the year, and then I also do it. I have a 5-year goal. Now, in business was way different. So business, my goal would always be, I'm an exit guy. So I would always, and so now I won't do another business unless it's a massive, massive potential. So there's a lot of businesses and things that are thrown at me, or ideas that I come up with, and then I chase it and say, okay, the exit's really not big enough. I can't get a $10 billion exit. I'm not going to do it. But so in a business, what I would do is I would always have a goal of an exit price. So let's say the exit price is $1 billion. And then I would go and look at the multiples on the business. So, let's say the multiple is a 4x revenue or a 10x EBITDA. And then I would basically have to, and I would back into how to get to that exit. So, and then I would just segment out, okay, I need 100 million bucks in revenue from this. I need 50 million from this. And I just basically back into it over a however long. I'm normally like a 3-year exit guy. So I just build in. And once you know you're like the goal, the end goal, it's very simple to just execute. But if you don't know where you're going or what the whole end game is, and you can't really, you're just kind of running with like a chicken with its head cut off.
Yeah, feel that. We're going through a lot of that at ZayZoon right now, where we need to better define what that end goal is, because that's what, like, yeah, that's ultimately what drives your day to day, right? And so it's what everyone else can attach their work to and their outcomes to, and so it's something that we've been going deep into.
Like, let's say you're got your sales guys, like, okay, well, they want to add, an extra $1 million a year to their book of business. Well, if every client's 100 grand, you need 10 clients. But if you've got to reach out to, if it's a 10% conversion, then you've got to reach out to 1,000 clients to get the 100. So your goal is to reach out to 1,000 clients. And you know that if you convert 10%, you're going to get 100 clients, and you're going to get yours. So it's pretty simple, but you got to know your goal first.
Yeah, revenue. Yeah, you're right. Like, the goal is what drives the ultimate outcome, right? And so it's like your goal, or your goal, or the activity you need to do is X amount of reach outs, and you know that if you do those reach outs, then the actual output of that will be the money that you make from it, right? It'll be X amount of clients signed, and then therefore X amount of revenue generated. Yeah. Okay, switching gears a little bit, but like back to, dude, your grandpa has some good quotes. But and it sounds like he's super impactful for you. So like I'd actually like to dig into that, and like why he's such an impactful figure for you. But he had one that you brought up where he talked about decisions are going to be tough, and you don't know which is the right one, but just make a decision. And if you're right 51% of the time, then you're right a majority of the time. And that's all you can ask for, really. And so I'm curious, like, what is a fast decision that you took too long to deliberate on, that ended up costing you an opportunity?
I don't know. That's a really great question. So basically, I had because I delayed too long that I didn't make the right decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been pretty lucky with these guesses. I don't know. I guess I'll use an example that I just had a flashback, but I didn't really dive in too much in it. But Facebook, it brings back those memories. And there was a memory that Facebook just flashed. And I went to Art Basel, and I was with the Winklevoss twins. And this was probably, I forget how, maybe 8 years ago. And I remember them talking about crypto. And I was just like, these guys are crazy. Like, they're just like these dudes from New York and got some money from Facebook, and they're fun, they're great dudes, but like, these guys are nuts. And I didn't even think about it really. I thought about it for a second, but I just was like quick to say, nah, this is not for me. And now I forgot about that until Facebook reminded me. And I look back and I was like, man, that was probably something I should have thought about more. But I can't think of anything that I really like dove into and then decided not to do it.
I have a different question then that's somewhat aligned, and might, hopefully it's not more difficult, but it might be more difficult to answer. So again, your grandpa's talking about, if you're right 51% of the time, then you're right a majority of the time. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
What's a decision that you make wrong 51% of the time?
That I make wrong 51% of the time. I don't know. I don't know. I guess maybe I don't think about the wrong moves. I don't know. I'm pretty good at just moving on and not really looking in the rearview mirror.
Sure.
So I think if I made something wrong, I normally just, I don't think about it again. I don't know. Maybe I'm married now, so maybe dating the wrong girls. I don't know what the.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I read a book by Matthew McConaughey called Green Lights, And it really stuck with me because it's sort of the same concept where it's basically like, there are no red lights in life. Like if you come up against a roadblock or you're going through adversity or whatever else, uh, like eventually that turns into a green light. It might be years down the road, decades down the road, or even for your next generation. But like green lights persist if you have that positivity. So I really,
Yeah,
I mean, I love that answer.
yeah, I
Um,
think it makes sense. Yeah.
cool, man. So like positive guy. Um, you are, I mean, I think just by nature of like you're saying, like you don't really think about it. It kind of just goes in the rear view and you're good to go. Um, I want to talk about like what gives you that energy. Like you, dude, like again, the cancer stuff, like 17 months at the age of 18. Since then, you've gone on to do so much stuff. Even today, like entrepreneur, producer, actor. Um, what gives you that energy?
I think I was very lucky that my mom was just a super positive person. And so whatever I didn't think was possible, she would always, make you say, oh, it is possible. Anything is possible. You can do it. And I think just growing up with her always pushing me, anytime I would maybe, she would just say, can't never did anything, and would just kind of, I guess, drive that home that you can do anything, and kind of overly positive, I would say. A lot of things are like, Mom, that's you can't, that's not even possible. But she believes it, and I think I was very lucky to have that in my upbringing and for her to do that.
Do you think that your experience with cancer shifted your thinking around taking bigger risks and kind of doubling down on that trait of you know putting your hands in a bunch of places and being I mentioned in the intro, like selling airheads in middle school, like you're really a hustler since day one. And so like do you think again like cancer shifted your thinking around doubling down on some of those traits, taking bigger risks, and ultimately just going for it?
you know I as you move through life, the more, I guess, era the more times you win, you start to believe that you can keep winning. And if you look at entrepreneurs, they get one big exit and they think that they can go and do it a bunch more times, and a lot of times it's, they got lucky, or it worked out well, but they can't do it again. So I think all those pieces in my life that showed me that I could beat something and I could do well, it just kept building and building into my positiveness. So I think when you beat cancer, for me, it was more about looking at the small things and appreciating those things that maybe I didn't do before. So I was always a very appreciative kid, but maybe I didn't look at the sky and look at the small details about the world and appreciate that. I mean, now every single day I wake up, I'm like, this is insane. Like, I cannot believe I get to live this life and live here, and it blows my mind every day. So maybe I think that's what maybe changed more, maybe being more appreciative. Um, but I think it's your world. You have to. You're going to get a lot of arrows in your back, and you're going to get a lot of just things that bring you down, and you've got to just remind yourself that, okay, don't let that affect who you are, and you can still do anything you want. You can still conquer anything, even though maybe you've been slowed down a little bit.
You said, yeah, great answer, Rob. And you said that like you wake up every day where you're at, and you're like, oh, this is beautiful and amazing, and partly because it is beautiful and amazing. So you're in Puerto Rico, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. How you've been there for a couple of years now, a few years?
4 years. And I
4 years.
moved here initially for tax purposes.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with what the incentives are or anything?
No.
So, I was living in LA, and there's this thing I read about, and it's, if you move to Puerto Rico, you pay 0% capital gains and 4% income tax, which is game changer. So that's total. And in California, you're paying over 50%. So that was why the initial move was. So if I sell a business, you pay 0%. Or if I sell a Mickey Mantle baseball card, you pay 0%. So that's what the initial move, that's why you initially moved. But once you get here, it's like, dude, you live in paradise. The people are amazing. um, it exceeds expectations by, a long shot.
Has that been difficult? Like so much of your life is in LA, and especially I would think like your most recent years, right? Like you've been doubling down on the producing side of things, on the acting side of things. Even Dope as like a staple brand. You said it's in certain Indiana, which I didn't know, but I think like LA is a staple for that stuff as well. Um, are you finding yourself struggling to keep connection to the scene there, or do you not find that an issue?
Well, I don't really have a business now to stay in the scene for, the only thing I miss is, the people are phenomenal in LA. I got to meet a lot of amazing people. I think the town has changed a lot. And, for me during that period of my life, it was incredible. I was single. Had a streetwear brand. It was like a blast, now at this point in my life, living on the beach, and it's still it's amazing, and the people that are here I find fascinating also, and they're super smart, and they've done great things with their lives and work, and I've got to learn a whole new, a lot of guys do a lot of, there's a lot of, people that do businesses I never even knew existed, and they've made a fortune. And so it's been interesting for me. I've got to learn a lot from a lot of amazing people here. So I think both are great in different ways.
Yeah. Do you I, I mean, maybe the answer is no. Like it sounds like not really, but do you think that it's inhibiting your ability to double down in the acting and producing space because of that proximity to Los Angeles?
No, I mean, I acted in 2 movies this year. I get offers on a daily basis. Not maybe every week at least. But the problem for me is at this point in my life, I'm not doing it for the cash. So, if I have to be gone for 6 months, that's not going to be a project for me. I do it as really like a passion or hobby. So, and I think I've got enough opportunities that I can be here. I can do it a couple times a year, get that fulfillment, and then still live the life that I want. If I was doing it to support my family, then yeah, I can see where LA would be a lot better. But I don't, luckily I don't do it to support my family. So, um, I get enough of the fill mentally as I need to with it. I'm not
Yeah,
trying to, it's not like I don't want to be, I don't want to be gone 12 months out of the year doing projects.
fair enough. And just a reminder, we're just kind of past the halfway mark. Anyone that wants to pop in with questions, you can do so in the Q&A section or in the chat section, I believe. So please do. We'd love to get you in here and hear from you. I want to talk about the Mickey Mantle card because that is just insane. You buy this record-setting baseball card, and you actually, I think, produced and created a film behind the card.
No, I was just asked to be
You're just
in
in
it.
it. You're just in
Yeah.
it. Okay. So you're in a film behind the card. Like, talk to me about your obsession here. Was this purely an investment? Why baseball instead of another asset, instead of another form of art or a different type of card? What's your obsession with all this?
So I collected baseball cards until I was probably 7 years old. And then I got out of it. I discovered girls and sports, and I left the hobby. And then COVID hits, and I moved to Puerto Rico. And I didn't really have much going on. And this influencer um, hits me up saying he's going to do this Zoom call to talk about sports cards. And I'm like, I don't know if that's, I don't know what that's about. That's not for me. I had nothing going on. It was like a Wednesday at 8 o'clock. So I went ahead and joined it. And he said, hey, there's going to be a lot of other guys that big names that, you know, you're friends with or that, you know, and I think it'd really be good if you just joined. So I joined the Zoom, and basically the Zoom was like, hey, baseball cards or, you know, sports cards are like booming, or, you know, it's you should look at it. And so that's how I got into it. Then I started buying. And at first I was like, this is crazy. These guys are nuts. But then I spent like 100 grand and bought like this diversified box of cards. And once you kind of get them in your hands, it's really cool. It's like a Michael Jordan rookie card. It's a Jackie Robinson rookie. It's like, it becomes kind of cool, you know? And so I did a lot of research, and I doubled down. I spent, you know, over $1 million pretty quickly in like the first month. But I kind of learned what I was doing. Then I realized that this influencer may have been kind of manipulating cards. And like he would buy a bunch of one, and he was telling people to go buy it after he bought them. So the reason why I bought the mantle is because he was telling everybody, don't buy baseball and don't buy vintage baseball. So I was really like thinking, I got to beat this guy to the punch. If he's saying don't buy baseball, he's probably buying baseball, and he's got to probably pump it later. And so that's what really got me into like baseball. And then I was really just kind of looking at the most iconic. And then I discovered, you know, I had a card, the Mickey Mantle card. I had it as a kid. And if you looked at all the other cards, they all rose in value by more than 10 times the price. You know, the Michael Jordan rookie card went from like 5 grand to 100 grand, whereas the Mickey Mantle didn't even double. And so, and then I was getting ready to sell dope, and a Super Bowl commercial was like $5 million. So anyways, I found the Mickey Mantle. It was, at the time, people thought I was insane because the highest price was ever paid was like 1.8 million for the Mickey Mantle. And that was the highest price I ever paid. So I paid 5.2, which is essentially like a double. Maybe it sold for a little more. Maybe it's 2.8 actually, 2.8 before. But I looked at it as, I'm going to own the media. If I buy a business, I grow the heck out of it quickly. And I basically, how do I market it? So when I bought the mantle, I wore a dope logo because I knew I was going to own the media. If I paid for a Super Bowl commercial to be $5 million, I might as well pay 5.2 million for a hard asset and get more exposure than a Super Bowl commercial. And then when I went and owned the media, I wanted to tell people 3 things. I wanted to tell you that it's the Mona Lisa of sports cards. And the reason why I coined that is because I wanted you to think, you know, art sells for over 100 million bucks. Cards, I was the idiot that paid the most. So I wanted you to think of it as art. So you could think that the value should be 100 million bucks. I wanted you to, and then my second thing was, it's the best 9, which is the grade. It's like there's 3 10s, there's 6 9s. So out of the 6, this is the best. And it was the best. But that was to protect myself. If any other guy sells a 9, I wanted you, if it went for less than what I paid, I wanted you to think mine was better. So I could get a premium, but mine was better. And the third one was, it was undervalued asset, which again, it was, just like I said, the Michael Jordan versus the thing. So that's when I went on the news and wrote all these articles, I one of those 3 things that come across. And the reason why I went viral also is because everybody thought I was an idiot. Everybody thought I was the craziest guy in the world. Who pays 5.2 million bucks for a baseball card? And what nobody knows is I sold the card 2 years later, January of this year, for 12,375,000. And thank God for Puerto Rico, it's capital gain, so there's no taxes. But so it actually worked out well. But at the time, everybody thought I was insane. But I looked at it as I was buying a hard asset. I was going to promote dope before I sold it. You know, I kind of had it was crazy, but it was also calculated crazy, which I think has kind of been the story of my life. Like, I'll take big risks, but they're calculated risks where they're limited downside. So that's with sports cards. I looked at it as they've been traded for 100 years. Downside risk is like 20%. It could go down 20% to what I buy. Like, I don't buy modern because a modern guy could get hurt. He could say something racial. He could do something bad to, you know, somebody else. He could get hurt, whatever. And so I don't buy modern because that's too risky. It could go crazy, but they could also go down a lot. So I'll buy guys that are, let's say, already dead and they've already had their legacy. So I'm very calculated as far as like the risk profile. If that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes a ton of sense. And that was like I can actually tell like how passionate you are about that stuff. And like you can really get into your mind there. And like
Yeah, now I'm into game used jerseys. So I bought Wayne Gretzky's last and final jersey that he wore to score his last and final point. So I like those because it's like history, you know. It's I've got one actually. The biggest sale in game used memorabilia is Michael Jordan's 1998 NBA Finals jersey from Game One. It sold for 10.1 million at Sotheby's. I actually have spent more. I have a better jersey than that, but I haven't made it public. But so because there's if I'm going to go public with it, I want to make sure that it does what I want to. I don't know what it's a longer story. We'll talk offline, but
no,
so
but I mean like man, the I would have never guessed. And like as you say it, it's so obvious, but I would have never guessed like your whole thought process of, well, a Super Bowl commercial is $5 million. I could spend 5.2 and get this. And I'm already trying to promote this clothing brand. What better way to do that than to take over the media? Like it is such a good thought process.
well, I
Um,
still own the logo, so I didn't sell the logo. So even though I was selling the trademarks, I still own the logo. So I had another incentive to pump the logo before I sold also.
oh, interesting. So what happens when someone buys the trademark but not the logo? Are they buying just like the ability to write dope on a piece of clothing?
Yeah, exactly. But they can't do it the logo.
Wow. Okay. That is very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, man, okay. So I guess like trying to think where I want to
Christian, yes, I can get into clothes again.
you can't
I
get
just can't do it with dope.
okay. Oh, you can sorry, you can get into clothes again, but you can't do it. You can't have like a dope brand.
No, I just can't call it dope.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Um, okay, where do I want to take this? Man, you have like such a crazy, interesting story. And I think just like I definitely like gravitate towards it. I remember in middle school, I sold pepperoni sticks, which was super random.
Yeah.
But as like a grade 7, grade 8 kid, making like a couple $1,000. I love like
Amazing.
the initial hustle of like the airheads. I want to very general question, but I think like a lot of the people that are on the call today, they're people that are here for like the purpose of Iceberg, which is like to learn and apply other people's stories to how they can, do unique things in their own life. Uh, I'm curious, like that starting moment and that bout of inspiration to start in a hustle. How are you finding that? How are you like? What's your advice for those on the call that are like, oh, I have like maybe a side hustle that I want to that I want to like jump 2 feet into, but I don't really know what to do. I don't know how to make the connections. I see all this talk about big business. Do I need investors? Do I need like how do I get started effectively? What's your advice to those people on the call today that are maybe experiencing that?
Depends on how old you are. So, I'll go back to the conservative Indiana guy. I'm going to tell you, you need to have 6 months saved up. That if you lose your job, you have 6 months runway to at least like figure out what to do next. I think if you're going to start a business, I think it's nice to work for a company. Like, don't slack at your current business, but at night, instead of playing video games or going to get drunk at the bars, I would say, spend your time working on your hustle or your business. And then once that thing starts to produce enough cash, or you've got a savings, and then you like, hey, this thing is producing, let's say 50% of my current salary, then maybe it's time to take a leap and quit your job and focus 100% on it. If you've got 3 kids and a wife, you can't be as risky as you can be when you're 20. Or let's say single. But I think you just need to make sure that, because a lot of these things don't work. I mean, you've done a phenomenal job at ZayZoon, but how many guys have tried to do this and then have failed? It's not as easy as it looks. And everybody always looks at, the guy that he gets a big exit and like, oh, that's so easy. You know, he got rich. Look at me. I didn't get paid anything. But they don't see the struggle that you have to go through to build these businesses. And, you know, you don't pay yourself to make sure that all your team is paid, and you're struggling. Like, I remember this business was killing, one of my businesses was killing it. We had a big team, everybody's getting paid. And I was having to reinvest all of our profits, all of my money back in the company to keep growing and growing and growing. So I was living way less of a great lifestyle as all my employees. And then I get the exit and everybody's like, oh, you got rich, but they didn't see the struggle going up to it. So I just think that before you take the leap, and now I'm more conservative. Back then, you know, I was 18, I was probably more of a risk taker in this stuff. But I would say if I could look back, you should always have, you know, savings just in case you get fired from your job or just because something doesn't work, just so you have a nest egg. And then I would say on a business side, you know, I would work at your job, and at night I would put a few hours into working on bettering yourself, bettering your life, and starting this new passion, this business that you love.
Yeah, and for ZayZoon employees on the call, you should just work more ZayZoon at night is what you should do. Rob, calculated risk taking. I love that. And then like you're kind of doubling down on it in this, right? You're like, get to a certain point, get to that 50% of your income maybe, and then like maybe that's the point where you're like, okay, this is starting to prove itself, and my downside risk isn't as big. Like maybe I can go into this. I want to go back to that quote that your grandpa told you, right? Just saying like, if you're right 51% of the time, you're right a majority of the time, and that's all you can ask for. I love getting into your mind for your sort of decision process around the Mickey Mantle card, because that is like so interesting. When you think of trying to make decisions 51% of the time in the correct way, is there like a specific framework that you're applying to that? Can you deconstruct some of that? Can you talk about another decision that you've made that you know you were right in, that sort of like deconstruct your mind for me in that sense? I'd love to hear it.
So let's use Ekim, for example. So at the time I was working at Finish Line, I was making a great salary. I had insurance. I love the executive team. I love the team there. You know, it was great. And so basically I managed a lot of these coupon sites, these affiliate sites. And so one of them was this guy in California who was a great guy. And I got to know him because I was managing the relationship. He was pushing Finish Line sales. And so basically I convinced him to give me 20% of his business. 20% of his business. And then I would earn 10% increments if we doubled the company. So basically, as we hit different revenue marks, then I'd earn 10% more of his company until we were 50-50. So there's a bigger story, but I worked out this deal with him. And so the decision was, shoot, do I quit Finish Line, my paycheck, my insurance, a good deal, you know, like good people, and take this leap to do a startup or to do a company. So then my downside protection in my own head was, well, he's already doing $5 million a year in revenue and $1.5 million in profit. So it's not a startup. It's not going to go to zero. You know, it's an existing business. So that was my kind of downside protection. And I knew that I knew the industry, and I knew all the players in the industry. I knew the retailers that I thought that I could make an instrumental change. And I believed that I could grow this business and double it quickly. And I knew that I could get the sale. So I knew I had the skill set to do it. But the downside risk was, the risk was, listen, I'm getting rid of a great job and a great salary and being protected. And my grandfather told me, what are you doing? Like, you have a great job, stay. And that's crazy to go and take a leap and to go chase this other business. And that's one where it was a tough decision, because do I listen to him and do I take the safe play and continue to live in Indiana? And you know, you're a big fish in a small pond. I was making a good amount of money for Indiana, and I had a place downtown, and I was, you know, it was great. Or do I take the leap and try a different method and try this business? and it ended up obviously paying off. And my grandfather was in the hospital and he was getting ready to die. And I pushed to sell the business a little bit quicker than maybe we should have. We got the deal done, and I showed him the sale and the number. And I remember he's in the hospital right before he passed, and he said, "You did good, kid." And that was I still get goosebumps to this day. I mean, that meant the world to me. So it was like, yeah, so that was a big decision for me. Do I go down this normal path that I probably should go, the safe path, or do I go in and do my own path? And it worked out.
What was so impactful about your grandpa?
So when I was 7, he moved in. He built a house in our backyard. He was kind of like my father, and he retired. He grew up in the Depression, and he grew up poor, and then he got married, had 3 kids, joined the military first, and then then he got out of the military, and then he basically needed to support his family, so he went to pharmacy school and became a pharmacist. And while he's in school, he swept the floors. Back then, you started from the bottom, and you hope that you can grow. But then the pharmacist becomes the manager of the store, and eventually became the president of this company called Hook's Drugstore, which it was a public company that had like 1,770 stores. So for me, I really looked up to him. But he never gave me anything. Even when I was starting Bitteroo, he made a lot of guys really wealthy. He never gave me a relationship. I can never say who my grandfather, that, hey, you used to work with my grandfather. Could you help me? He didn't. When he passed, I was already had a couple exits, but he gave me $10,000. Like that was, like he didn't give me. I'd pay for my own car, pay for my own school. So he gave me the knowledge and he gave me the drive, but it wasn't like he just handed everything to me. I think every day I'd go over and listen to him and learn from him. And I always wanted to outdo him because it was kind of never good enough. It's like you couldn't really make him happy, I guess. And I think that was always he's my biggest inspiration. I always wanted to please him, and he was tremendous. He was a great guy.
Did your parents have the same effect on you in that way?
Yeah, so it's a longer story. So it was weird. So my mom's been married 3 times. So I didn't really know my father most of my life, my real father most of my life. So he was kind of that consistency, I think, from a male figure. I mean, I had she was married to great guys along the way, but I think that was kind of the consistency, and but
Yeah. Fair. Okay, so I want to talk maybe for the last few minutes here about imposter syndrome, because you talked about being a big fish in a small pond in Indiana, but you're like, yeah, if I want to grow, like I gotta go out west and like kind of start the next phase of like the Rob 2.0, right? And I think like imposter syndrome is a thing that I definitely struggle with, and I think everyone struggles with it, whether whether you're owning a business, working in a business, or doing whatever else. You're always second guessing, like, do I actually have the ability to be in this room right now? Like, am I actually this person that's sitting here? And so I want to talk about like even today with kind of the success that you've had, you're still continuing to grow. You still have that growth mindset. I think like the movie you were in earlier this year was probably the biggest movie with, for sure, the biggest co-star of your career. How does that imposter syndrome sit in? Do you find yourself with imposter syndrome? And what do you do to combat that if you do?
I don't know. So I don't really know about imposter syndrome, I guess. So okay, say it again. I'm sorry, I was reading.
Yeah, and sorry, I see that there's actually a big question there too from Christian, which certainly like feel free to comment on that if you want.
Let's answer yours.
Yeah,
So
sure. So I guess just like I'm curious about imposter syndrome, right? So the idea that you're an imposter, like you are, the idea that you are sitting in a room with people, and you're having conversations in like this big boardroom, or in your case, like you're on the set of a new movie with, crazy good actors. Do you ever get that second guess feeling where you're like, wait a second, I don't think I belong here. Like
No, for
this
me,
is
it's just cool. I can't believe it, but it's not like I mean, no, I think it's awesome. I soak it all in, I mean, even, I'm definitely probably the poorest guy in my like localized friend group that I hang out with on a, weekly basis. And I don't feel like I'm like an imposter to be there. I just think it's pretty cool that I get to learn and from these people and be around them and see how other people experience life. And movies, I think it's it's just a cool, fun thing to be able to experience. But yeah, I don't know. I just think you gotta just be in the moment and appreciate every little thing that happens and then maneuver. Like you're in the boardroom and you're a little confused of why you're there. You just soak it in and be like, dude, I made it. This is cool. I can't believe I'm here. Like, dude, you built a crazy company. This is insane. You have 47 people listening that work for you. This is insane. Like, who would have thought?
yeah,
But you did it. So I think, you know, uh, you're not an imposter. You did it.
yeah, fair enough.
Crazy. And you
Um,
get to work with people that you love, that your friends and your family and you did it, man. You're not impostoring anything. You figured it out.
yeah, fair enough.
And that's I think the
Well,
difference between people that make it and people that don't. The people that don't make it, they kind of find reasons to quit and find reasons to give up. Hey, this is tough. I called 100 clients today and I didn't get any sales, so this isn't working for me. But the ones that survive and the ones that exceed in life is the ones that say, oh well, shit, okay, that means I got to call 300. I'm sure it wasn't easy for you to hire these people to manage them. Managing employees is tough, to raise money, to whatever. Your every step along the way is, you don't have experience doing that. I'm sure that was a pain, but you figured it out, and because of that, you're feeding a lot of people.
cool, man. Well, thanks so much for coming out today, Rob. That was awesome. One last question there, the Holy Grail memorabilia item. What do you got on the list?
um I can't say because I don't know if I should. I don't want to. I
No, no,
basically,
don't put anything out there that you're waiting to have your Super Bowl moment. That's for sure.
yeah, I would say that there's nothing better than I would say Michael Jordan is the GOAT. I think anything by him is, I think I bought things that I thought were the best of the bust. Obviously Gretzky, Jordan. I bought a Kobe Bryant finals jersey from his last NBA championship. I like cool things, So I was bidding on Messi's jersey this morning. He sold at Sotheby's today, but I don't know. But
Cool,
game use I think is cool.
cool, cool, man. Well,
Any other
thanks.
questions from people? Christian, thank you so much for your comments. I'll read this one. Let's get a licensing of my art. I don't know about licensing, to be honest. I'd go to, there's like a licensing expo in Vegas, but I would just reach out with your art. I'd DM people. Everybody's accessible now. So I would reach out to the companies that you want to collaborate with and just say, hey, I'm happy to let you use my art. I want, 10% of the sales. Let's do a collab. That's what I would do. I would just reach out to people. It's a numbers game. You're probably going to get more no's than yeses, but eventually someone's going to say yes.
And reach out to the same person 100 times.
Yeah, that's a good
You,
point
you,
too.
you want to find that fine line between being persistent and being annoying, and that's where you get in contact and get someone, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool, man. All right, Rob. Thanks so much.
Thank you guys. Congratulations again to everybody there and you, Chaz. Thank you so much for thinking of me.
Yeah,
And
thanks, Chaz. Thanks for setting it all up, man.
That was awesome. Thank you, Rob.
appreciate you guys.
All right, take care.